Between Cleveland's calm streets and its darkest corners lies a divide few ever see. A captive dragged through safe neighborhoods. A grandmother executed inside her own home. A woman tortured and folded into a plastic tote. And a river giving up the secret it tried to keep. Each scene soaked in fear, each ending with decades behind bars, yet no sentence can summon the dead back to life. And this is Inside Cleveland's Darkest Black Killers, Shocking Murders, and True Crime Documentary. Welcome back to Justice Reversed, where real crimes meet real justice. Number 1. Portria Williams, Hakeem-Ali Shomo, Destiny Henderson, Nathaniel Pope Jr., Anthony Bryant, and Brittany Smith. A quiet November dusk settled over East Cleveland, unaware that behind closed doors, a captive's final hours were unfolding in terror. The victim was 22-year-old Alicia Pointer, targeted by a shifting group of suspects who believed she held information about the murder of 19-year-old Emmanuel Shomo earlier that month. The individuals involved, Portria Williams, Hakeem-Ali Shomo, Destiny Henderson, Nathaniel Pope Jr., Anthony Bryant, and Brittany Smith, moved in and out of the crime with chilling coordination, their actions stretching across multiple homes and neighborhoods. The sequence began on the 4th of November 2021, when Williams, Henderson, Polk, and Shomo drove to a residence near Glenmont Road. Armed with a gun, Shomo and Henderson forced two unrelated women into their vehicle, demanding to be taken to Pointer's location. After reaching the address, Pointer was lured outside and taken at gunpoint. The first two victims were released. Pointer was transported to Williams' residence, where she was held overnight. During those hours, Polk left the scene while Smith and Bryant arrived. Prosecutor Michael O'Malley later said she was tortured and brutalized for hours as the suspects attempted to force information connected to the earlier homicide. When Shomo left the residence, the ordeal continued. Williams, Bryant, Henderson, and Smith forced Pointer into a vehicle the next day and drove her to an abandoned, fire-damaged house on Savannah Avenue. Inside its basement, Williams and Bryant allegedly fired multiple shots, killing her. Her body was discovered there on November 9. The investigation unfolded quickly. 6 suspects were taken into custody, while U.S. Marshals announced a $5,000 reward for fugitive Hakeem-Ali Shomo, labeling him armed and dangerous. After the discovery of Pointer's body, officials fast-tracked demolition of the abandoned home, tearing it down days later. Legal proceedings grew increasingly complex. All 6 principal suspects were indicted in May 2022 on charges including aggravated murder, kidnapping, felonious assault, and conspiracy. Shomo and Williams were also charged with having weapons under disability. 3 suspects accepted plea deals and agreed to testify. Polk and Henderson pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter, kidnapping, and conspiracy, while Williams pleaded guilty to aggravated murder. The remaining defendants, Bryant, Smith, and Shomo, went to trial in March 2023, but a procedural communication error forced a mistrial. By October 2025, Brittany Smith pleaded guilty mid-trial to aggravated murder and conspiracy. Bryant's trial continued, while Shomo, Polk, Henderson, and Williams awaited sentencing or retrial. Community response remained somber and resolute. Prosecutor O'Malley called the crime horrific. Pointer's aunt, Catherine, said, during the demolition of the crime scene, "We are here," so her name remains in everyone's memory. From this tragedy emerged stark reminders: coordinated violence escalates rapidly when unchecked, isolation can make victims dangerously vulnerable, and fear often silences those closest to unfolding danger. These lessons echo through the hours Alicia endured. Her story stands as a stark warning: when cruelty is allowed room to grow, it consumes far more than the moment it's born. Before moving on, if this truth hits you, press hype, stand with the forgotten, amplify justice, and make sure silence never buries the voices of the lost. Number 2. DeLawnte Hardy. A quiet summer night fractured without warning, as 2 shootings linked by blood and desperation set Ohio on edge. The suspect at the center was 24-year-old DeLawnte Hardy, accused of killing his grandmother, 63-year-old Beatrice Porter, and later shooting Cleveland police officer Jamison Ritter during an attempted arrest. Authorities say the violence began on the 28th of June 2024, inside Porter's Garfield Heights home, where Hardy allegedly stole her firearm and shot her in the back of the head before fleeing on his grandfather's bicycle. A family member found her hours later, leading to an assault warrant and grim early reports that she was brain dead. 6 days after the first shooting, around 1 a.m. on July 4, Cleveland officers responded to a tip that Hardy was hiding at a relative's residence on East 80th Street. Using spotlights, officers ordered him repeatedly to exit with his hands raised. Police records state he instead fled through the back door, armed with the stolen gun and 2 swords. As officers moved to arrest him, Hardy allegedly fired 4 shots. The first mortally wounded Officer Ritter, a 27-year-old Army National Guard member known for discipline and calm under pressure. Another shot narrowly missed a second officer. Ritter was transported to a hospital and pronounced dead, while Hardy was taken into custody at the scene. Hours later, Porter died from her injuries. The investigation unfolded at high speed. Hardy appeared in municipal court on July 5, where a judge set bond at $5 million, citing the alarming rise in gun violence involving young offenders. A grand jury later returned an extensive indictment, including aggravated murder, attempted aggravated murder, aggravated robbery, weapons violations, theft, and resisting arrest. Yet the legal process halted abruptly when Hardy was declared incompetent to stand trial in September 2024. Court records described a substantial probability of competency restoration with treatment. Hardy was ordered into inpatient care and required to take long-acting antipsychotic medication. But between December 2024 and March 2025, he refused treatment, prompting Judge Ashley Kilbane to approve involuntary medication. Additional concerns surfaced when Hardy ingested drug-laced mail intended for another patient, triggering emergency medical intervention. By late 2025, hearings continued as the court monitored whether he could be restored within Ohio's legal timeframe for serious felonies. The community response was immediate and emotional. Prosecutor Michael O'Malley said Hardy caused unimaginable damage and grief. Ritter's family later criticized the competency facility, alleging months of medication failures and inadequate oversight. Hardy's defense acknowledged the losses, stressing that his actions reflected significant mental health challenges and urging the public to treat mental illness as a medical condition rather than a moral failing. From this tragedy, 3 lessons resonate. Untreated psychological decline can escalate into catastrophic violence. Early warning signs within families must never be ignored. And officers responding to high-risk warrants confront unpredictable threats in seconds. These reminders echo through every hearing tied to Hardy's fate. And beneath the legal battles, one truth remains: violence leaves wounds that no courtroom ruling can fully mend. Number 3. Dalontay R. Edmond-Geiger. A quiet neighborhood can hide unthinkable cruelty, and one home in Cleveland revealed a nightmare no one imagined possible. The man responsible was 31-year-old Dalontay Edmond-Geiger Sr., later convicted for the kidnapping, torture, and near-fatal assault of a 60-year-old woman he knew. Prosecutors said he blamed her for legal trouble he faced, a belief that turned a routine car ride into hours of violence inside his West 97th Street residence. According to court documents, the assault escalated immediately. He stabbed her in the arm, zip-tied her hands, and beat her repeatedly. She told investigators he broke a television over her head, kicked her so hard that her neck fractured, and dragged her up and down stairs and from room to room while she was already gravely injured. What followed shocked even veteran detectives. Edmond-Geiger forced her body into a 3-foot-wide plastic tote, folding her inside until she could barely breathe. Police later noted she was discovered stuffed and folded, unconscious, her back and spine broken, head fractured, and her breathing shallow enough to require a ventilator. The brutality was so extreme that Cuyahoga County Prosecutor Michael O'Malley called it one of the most horrific cases I've seen. The investigation began on the 2nd of May 2023, after a woman ran into a corner store and called 911, reporting someone tied up in a basement. Officers arrived at Edmond-Geiger's home, but he delayed them for nearly 30 minutes before allowing a search, long enough, they later learned, for him to move the victim through the house. They found only an air mattress and left. Later that evening, police interviewed a witness who claimed Edmond-Geiger had attacked a woman and shown photos of her injuries, referring to her as a snitch. Just after midnight on May 3, officers returned. Inside the house, an officer heard faint moaning. Edmond-Geiger tried to drown it out by turning up the music on his phone. When detectives pressed him, he finally said, "She's in the tote," leading police to the black container on the porch. He was arrested immediately. In court, Edmond-Geiger questioned why his bond was set at $750,000, then raised his middle finger toward the judge. Months later, he pleaded guilty to kidnapping, felonious assault, tampering with evidence, and weapons charges. She imposed 16 to 20 years in state prison. Edmond-Geiger stood expressionless, his posture rigid, as the sentence was read. The victim addressed the court via Zoom from her rehabilitation facility, still largely paralyzed. "He didn't win because I'm still alive," she said. "I will never be his victim. He is a victim of himself." From this ordeal emerged 3 sharp warnings: early signs of vengeful fixation can precede extreme violence, isolation inside private homes can conceal prolonged torture, and ignoring escalating aggression only raises the risk of catastrophic harm. These lessons echo long after the case file closes. Some crimes do not fade with time, they remain as reminders of how fragile safety becomes in the hands of rage. Number 4. Omnisun Azali. A quiet family home can hide turmoil so deep that no one sees the breaking point until it is already too late. In Euclid, Ohio, the life of 37-year-old Mwaka Ruth Azali ended inside the home she shared with her husband, 35-year-old Omnisun Azali, a U.S. Army veteran and son of Judge Cassandra Collier Williams. On the 26th of May 2021, the couple's children were inside as a deadly struggle unfolded, one that Omnisun later described as an act of survival and prosecutors called deliberate murder. During his testimony, Omnisun admitted he shot his wife, but insisted she fired first. He claimed Mwaka shot at him 3 times during a floor struggle, leaving bullet holes in the walls. He said her 4th attempt triggered his military reflexes, prompting him to draw his .40 caliber pistol and warn her, "Mwaka, stop," before firing. But forensic findings told a different story. The medical examiner testified that Mwaka was struck 3 times, twice in the side of the head and once in the cheek, with the final shot so close it tore off a braid and lodged it into the couch, suggesting she was lying down. A critical piece of the timeline centered on the actions of Omnisun's mother. Judge Collier Williams told the court she was in chambers when her son called, saying something had happened and he needed to bring the children to her home. Moments later he added, "She shot at me, and I shot back." Prosecutors argued the judge's delay in calling 911, nearly 11 minutes at home and a car ride later, may have cost valuable time, asking whether Mwaka was still alive and bleeding out. Police arrived to find Mwaka's .380 caliber pistol beside her, with gunshot residue on her hands and DNA on the weapon. But the pattern of the wounds, prosecutors said, left no room for self-defense. Omnisun was arrested on May 27, and Euclid Municipal Judge Patrick Gallagher set his bond at $1 million. Due to his mother's judicial position, Cuyahoga County prosecutors recused themselves, and Summit County prosecutors took over. His trial began in late November 2022. After more than 10 hours of deliberation, the jury convicted him of 2 counts of murder, felonious assault, and domestic violence. On the 14th of December 2022, Omnisun stood silent as Judge Patricia Cosgrove sentenced him to life in prison, with parole eligibility after 21 years. His face remained still, his posture rigid, as victim impact statements filled the courtroom. "She loved him very much," said Mwaka's sister, her voice breaking. Another family member added, "My mother's death has broken me." From this tragedy rise sobering warnings: early signs of escalating domestic conflict must never be dismissed, emergency calls must be made immediately despite confusion or fear. And firearms in volatile households amplify danger beyond control. These lessons echo through every detail of the case. Family homes can appear peaceful, yet behind closed doors, violence can reshape futures long before anyone understands the cost. Number 5. Dy'mond Vaden and Emmanuel McQueen Jr. They vanished from view, but the river would not keep its secret. George A. Cox Jr., a 32-year-old man from Cleveland, Ohio, disappeared in October 2024. His family reported him missing several weeks later, launching what began as a standard missing persons case. But months later, the investigation took a darker turn. All signs pointed to someone from his inner circle, his girlfriend, Dy'mond Vaden. The last known sighting of Cox occurred near Bosworth Avenue and Peony Avenue on October 18. His final communication was logged around October 19. On November 8, after growing concern, his family filed a missing person report with Cleveland police. Officers who conducted a wellness check at the apartment Cox shared with Vaden found the place nearly empty. There was minimal furniture, and what appeared to be blood was visible on the floor. Laboratory testing confirmed the blood belonged to Cox. By that time, Vaden had left the apartment without a trace. It wasn't until the 16th of May 2025 that a major breakthrough came. Two kayakers navigating a shallow, marshy stretch of the Huron River in Erie County discovered a badly decomposed body wrapped in a fitted bedsheet and bound with rope described as military or marine grade. DNA testing confirmed the body was Cox. Investigators noted that the bedding used to conceal the body matched linens from the apartment he had shared with Vaden, further tightening the forensic link. The case moved swiftly from that point. Detectives from the Cleveland Division of Police, along with state and county forensic teams, compiled damning evidence. Bloodstained clothing was discovered at Vaden's new residence. Phone records and digital data placed her in key locations during the time of the crime. On the 21st of July 2025, police arrested Vaden at a different residence she now shared with 41-year-old Emmanuel McQueen Jr. A firearm was found inside. Both individuals were prohibited from owning weapons due to prior convictions. On the 25th of July 2025, a Cuyahoga County grand jury handed down indictments. Vaden was charged with 2 counts of murder, 2 counts of felonious assault, tampering with evidence, gross abuse of a corpse, and unlawful possession of a firearm. McQueen faced a separate weapons charge. Vaden is being held on a $1 million bond pending arraignment. The cause of death has not been publicly disclosed by the medical examiner. Cuyahoga County Prosecutor Michael O'Malley assured the public, stating, "Cox's family has waited for answers, and today they are one step closer to justice." The victim's father offered gratitude to the detectives, particularly Kevin Caluhan, and admitted he had once feared his son's remains would never be found. "So many people go missing. You don't realize how many until you're affected by it," he said. This case is a stark reminder of how violence can live quietly behind closed doors. Crime doesn't always begin with chaos, it often begins with control. Document everything, trust your instincts, and speak up before silence turns fatal. Some bodies don't surface, but the truth always does. Number 6. Tamara McLoyd and Anthony Butler Jr. A quiet walk toward a New Year's celebration turned into a tragedy that would shake an entire city. On the evening of the 31st of December 2021, 25-year-old Cleveland police officer Shane Bartek, off duty and heading toward his car in the Rocky River Drive apartment lot, crossed paths with 19-year-old Tamara McLoyd. Surveillance later showed McLoyd approaching him with a gun, initiating what prosecutors described as an ambush. Bartek attempted to fight back, grabbing for the weapon, but 2 shots were fired during the struggle, one striking his chest, the other his back. McLoyd fled in his vehicle, leaving the young officer fatally wounded. He was rushed to Fairview Hospital, where he was pronounced dead. Hours later, police located Bartek's stolen vehicle. Behind the wheel was 28-year-old Anthony Butler Jr., who refused to stop. Dashcam video captured a pursuit that cut across multiple jurisdictions until Butler crashed the car into a fence at the Riviera Apartments in Euclid. Officers shattered the windows and pulled him from the vehicle. He later told investigators he had been given the car by McLoyd. Detectives pieced the case together quickly, surveillance footage confirmed the ambush, and investigators tracked McLoyd's movements through videos she posted on Instagram. She was arrested early on New Year's Day. During interrogation, McLoyd confessed to the robbery and shooting, telling investigators she had not known Bartek was an officer. She was linked to a broader crime spree that included robberies, thefts, arson, and a previous armed robbery for which she was already on juvenile probation. A grand jury indicted her on aggravated murder, aggravated robbery, felonious assault, theft, grand theft, and weapons charges. Prosecutors declined to pursue the death penalty after consulting with Bartek's family. At trial in August 2022, a jury found her guilty on nearly all counts. Judge John O'Donnell later described her as someone who threatened, stole, robbed, and killed without compunction. During sentencing, McLoyd stood expressionless as the judge imposed life in prison with parole eligibility after 47 years, noting she would likely be in her 70s before seeing a parole board. Butler received 3 years for receiving and driving the stolen car. The community reaction was profound. Hundreds of officers from across the country attended Bartek's funeral. Cleveland Mayor Justin Bibb condemned the violence and praised the verdict, while prosecutor Michael O'Malley called McLoyd a terrorist on our streets. McLoyd's own jail writings showed no remorse, with statements claiming she had made history and asserting, "This is what happens when you kill a cop." The case later prompted officials to classify Bartek's death as a line-of-duty killing, allowing his family access to formal support services. As the courtroom closed, the story became a stark reminder of how rapidly violent crime unfolds. From this tragedy come difficult lessons. Trust your instincts around volatile individuals, recognize that crime escalation often follows a pattern, and stay aware of your surroundings even in familiar spaces. A life ended in seconds, leaving a city to confront what violence steals long after the echo of a gunshot fades. Number 7. Armond Johnson. A single night in Slavic Village would expose a level of violence that residents struggle to comprehend. In early July 2019, investigators confronted a scene of 4 lives taken in one continuous chain of brutality. The man responsible was identified as 26-year-old Armond Johnson, a figure already known to police through a long history of domestic violence and robbery. His victims were 25-year-old Takira Collins, her 2 children, Armond Johnson Jr. and Aubrey Stone, and 35-year-old neighbor David Cousin Jr. The timeline began on July 8, when Johnson entered Collins' home near East 63rd Street and Fleet Avenue. Prosecutors later stated he shot Collins in the back and torso. After the shooting, he set the home ablaze using an accelerant, filling the residence with thick smoke before fleeing. Inside were the 2 children, who died from smoke inhalation, a detail confirmed by the medical examiner. Hours later, in a vacant field next door, police found Cousin Jr. shot in the head and chest. Detectives believed he encountered Johnson as he was leaving the burning home, possibly trying to help Collins after her mother had received a text saying she was being threatened. The investigation launched on July 9, when Cousin Jr.'s body was located at daybreak. As officers canvassed the immediate area, they noticed signs of fire damage at the nearby home. Smoke lingered in the air. Through a window, they saw the bodies of the children and forced entry, finding them alongside Collins. Johnson was arrested later that same day on an outstanding warrant and soon charged with aggravated murder. A grand jury quickly indicted him on 26 counts, including 14 counts of aggravated murder, making the case eligible for the death penalty. His bond was set at $5 million. In September 2022, a jury found Johnson guilty on all major counts: aggravated murder, arson, kidnapping, endangering children, and tampering with evidence. During the penalty phase, jurors determined the aggravated circumstances did not outweigh mitigating factors beyond a reasonable doubt, sparing him from capital punishment. On the 14th of October 2022, Judge Timothy McCormick sentenced him to 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Witnesses described Johnson standing silent, eyes fixed toward the bench, showing little response as the weight of the sentence was read. An image that later circulated widely across true crime platforms and YouTube news compilations. Community reaction was immediate and intense. Cleveland Police Chief Calvin Williams called the killings heinous. Prosecutor Michael O'Malley stated, "He brutally murdered 4 people, including his own son." A trauma response team was deployed, and a candlelight vigil filled the intersection of East 63rd and Fleet Avenue with grieving families, neighbors, and community advocates. From such devastation comes a difficult reminder about safeguarding loved ones. Warning signs matter: document threats, intervene early when violence escalates, and seek help when a partner's behavior turns unpredictable. Awareness is often the barrier between danger and survival. Some crimes fade from headlines, but their echoes stay with the communities forced to endure them. Number 8. Katia Chappell. A quiet Thanksgiving morning turned into a moment that Cleveland detectives would later describe as senseless and abrupt, leaving one woman dead and another fighting to survive. In the early hours of the 25th of November 2021, 28-year-old Katia Chappell became the central figure in a confrontation that unfolded along the 12000 block of Elmwood Avenue, Two women, 29-year-old Dominique Johnson and a 23-year-old companion, sat inside a parked vehicle near an industrial building when a verbal dispute escalated. Witnesses reported raised voices, and police later noted that the argument intensified in seconds. According to investigators, Chappell opened fire, striking both women. Johnson died from her wounds, while the younger woman managed to survive. Responding officers found evidence of the shooting alongside a related vehicle crash at the scene. Chappell's attorney, Michael Peterson, would later claim she fired in self-defense, saying she had been threatened moments before the gunshots. But prosecutors viewed the case differently, pointing to the sudden escalation and the fatal outcome. What followed added further notoriety to the investigation. Instead of turning herself in, Chappell disappeared for more than a month. Prosecutors alleged she was posting on social media during this time and even bragged about the slaying. Though officials declined to provide specific posts, they argued her online activity demonstrated she was a flight risk and a danger to the public. The search for her grew urgent. The U.S. Marshals Northern Ohio Violent Fugitive Task Force tracked her movements, eventually locating her in Maple Heights on the 10th of January 2022. U.S. Marshal Pete Elliott emphasized the weight of the arrest, stating that carelessly taking a life can never be overlooked. Chappell's attorney countered that she had not been evading capture and that he had been attempting to arrange her surrender when the marshals intervened. Chappell pleaded not guilty during her February 2022 arraignment. Her attorney requested a $100,000 bond, citing her pregnancy and medical needs. Prosecutors pushed for a higher amount, repeating concerns about her fugitive status and the alleged social media behavior. Judge Kathleen Sutula ordered Chappell held on a $1 million bond after instructing her not to speak when she tried to address the allegations directly. Her jury trial began on the 8th of February 2023. 6 days later, on February 14, jurors found her guilty on all counts, including aggravated murder, attempted murder, multiple counts of felonious assault, tampering with evidence, and carrying concealed weapons. On the 16th of March 2023, now 30 years old, Chappell appeared before Judge Sutula to receive her sentence. The court imposed her life in prison, with parole eligibility after 43.5 years. Law enforcement expressed hope that the arrest and conviction brought some measure of peace. And from a case shaped by confrontation and flight comes a reminder worth carrying forward. Conflicts escalate quickly, danger often appears without warning, and staying aware of your surroundings can save your life. Violence leaves echoes long after the moment passes, and justice can only quiet one part of the sound. Beneath Cleveland's quiet streets, these stories remind us that danger often moves long before anyone sees its shadow. And if tonight's cases left you questioning how much remains hidden in this city's darkest corners, stay with us. The next investigation is already unfolding, and the truth waiting ahead is far more unsettling than what lies behind. Subscribe to Justice Reversed, tap the notification bell, and be the first to witness the next chapter in America's most disturbing real crime files.